Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes. We are here to preview the Florida State game. That is going to happen Friday night, 6:30 Central. The Gators I got to see up close in person in Nashville here last weekend in a pretty shocking defeat to Vanderbilt. Florida State is playing really well, just a really good team statistically. Blake, what do we think of this matchup? The Gators, at this point, I'm just throwing up my hands because last weekend, Florida just trounced a South Carolina team that throttled Tennessee in return, did not give up a touchdown other than a special teams score, goes to Nashville, loses to Vandy. Florida will be without linebacker Ventrell Miller, who got ejected for targeting humans the first half. What do we make of this game between the Gators and the Seminoles, which, by the way, is in Tallahassee?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, again, you kind of reset your thoughts on Florida heading into this, and we talked about what the momentum would look like for the Gators if they had beaten Vanderbilt and had a chance to finish, pretty strong if they win at Florida State and maybe have a 4-game winning streak to finish the season. We had said they'd been playing better, even in some of the losses. You could see some things that were improving, but just to lose, I think that game at Vanderbilt, that kind of resets your thoughts, especially heading into a rivalry game against a Florida State team that's been pretty good. I just think this is a Florida State. It's a streak. it's the streaky season for the Seminoles because they won their first 4, lost their next 3, but have won their last 4 now, and have a chance to finish with a 5-game winning streak here if they can beat the Gators. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, for this Florida team heading to Tallahassee. Looks like some rain in the forecast as well. So how does that impact this game? But all in all, it feels like a difficult task for a Florida team coming off a pretty disappointing loss at Vandy.
When Florida's got the ball, the Gators are going to want to try to run more than they throw it. They're averaging 35 rushing plays a game, 30 passing plays. Now, again, when we calculate rushing and passing plays, a sack goes in as a passing play because that's what the team is trying to do. Anyway, Florida's averaging 31.2 points a game. Florida State's defense, which I think is elite, giving up 18 points a game. Florida has lost 5 fumbles and 8 picks. Florida State has got 7 of each. Florida State has sacked quarterbacks 33 times. Florida's only given up 12. That, of course, because Anthony Richardson is so mobile and hard to bring down. Per rushing play, Florida, which got grounded in Nashville, averaging 6.2. Florida State only giving up 4.6. Pass plays, Florida averaging 7.5 and capable of generating some big plays. Florida State, an elite pass defense, giving up 4.5 per throw. The one thing for Florida is that, again, the Gators want to run the ball. Didn't do it well a week ago, but it's maybe a little bit easier to attack Florida State on the ground than through the air.
Well, and I mean, I think that was the big thing, right? Is the fact that Florida only had 45 yards against Vanderbilt. It was just, it was a stunning result based on what we had seen, like we'd mentioned in previous. We thought that was it. We thought if you're talking about an advantage Florida could have, that was what we expected to be the key to the game and why Florida would win the game is being able just to run the ball the way they had run it. Instead, 45 yards on the ground, which again, I would never have thought between, Johnson, Richardson, and Etienne there. I would have never thought that would be the results you would have had. Of course, Anthony Richardson throws for 400, but I mean, it's a game where Florida's playing from behind and, kind of certainly changed the dynamic of how they approached it. But I think that's it because, like you said, this Florida State defense has been really good. Top 15 in the country, total yards allowed, passing yards per game, points scored, allowing 18 points a game. Fourth, 11th, and 13th, respectively, in those 3 categories. So, they've been good, and I think that's what you want to see here. This is the kind of game you really want to see Anthony Richardson, give them a chance to have a chance to win the game. But I think it's just going to be interesting to see how this plays out because, passing wise, like we said, Florida State only giving up 155.4 per game through the air. That is remarkable, and we'll see if Florida's defense can crack, Florida's offense can crack this Florida State defense because we thought they would do that against Vanderbilt, but just how the game flow went, that didn't happen. And We'll see if they kind of get back to certainly what has been successful for them. And again, I think they're very hard to stop when they're on. Having those three guys running the ball, but a lot of that obviously is going to depend on the other side of the ball too. So.
Okay, a word from our presenting sponsor before we talk about the other side of the ball, that is Stakes. You can predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Stakes, players can submit their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 and get a double welcome bonus. It is a predictions app, not a betting app. Free to play, free to join. You can win stuff. What's not to like? Help out the folks who help our channel. Okay, when the Seminoles have the ball, averaging 35.4 points a game, Florida giving up 27.2, and again, without Ventrell Miller for a half. The Seminoles average 38 rushing plays a game and 31 pass plays. In those, they are averaging 6.1 per rush, 7.9 per pass. Florida giving up 4.9 per rushing play, 6.9 per pass. In terms of turnovers, the Gators have lost 12 fumbles. I don't think that's right. In fact, Florida is leading the SEC in turnover margin at plus 10. So scrap that part of it. But in any case, Florida doesn't turn the ball over a lot. And Florida State has forced 6 fumbles, 6 interceptions. Not a big factor for the Seminoles or turnovers. Anyway, Florida has been very much prone to giving up big runs at times this year. Florida State runs the ball pretty well. And I think, again, that's what Florida wants to do, is run the ball. I think Florida State is going to probably want to do that as well.
Yeah, I think that's accurate based on kind of looking at certainly Florida State and the numbers that they put up on the ground. Because I mean, this is a team that has kind of proven that they can do this very effectively. And like we said too, I mean, I think this Florida State team, again, if we're an SEC channel, if you remember watching Florida State in that first game against LSU, if you've watched them since then, I know they had a couple of those losses or that 3-game losing streak. A couple of those were close calls where they had their chances. But like this team is, again, they're doing a lot of things well. And I think that, that's what you want to see at this time of year, is kind of making, your move and really starting to play some pretty good football. And if you look at kind of rushing wise, Trey Benson had at least 80 yards rushing in the last 4 games. Went for 163 in that game at Syracuse where they blew out the Orange there. So that's obviously a big dynamic in terms of him being involved in this. Jordan Travis at the quarterback position, like you said, I mean, he hasn't thrown for a ton of yards, but it's because we know that Florida State, again, is going to really have a chance to run the ball. And I think that's something we talked about too when you looked at it from Vanderbilt's perspective, right? We talked about Ray Davis and perhaps what they could do against this Florida defense, because that is, that's the thing, is we had mentioned, the Florida defense is still not where they want to be. They've had some spots where maybe they've gotten a little better here and there, but it's still a process, I think, for them, and it's not going to be something that's going to be fixed this season. So I'm curious to see, like we said, especially if the weather's involved here. Looks like there is some, rain chances and all that in this game. So I think both teams will stick to the running game, and especially look at this Florida State team and what they can do to kind of challenge, Florida's defense. I think it's, again, can Florida's defense rise to the challenge here and be able to play efficiently enough to hold down this Florida State team.
By the way, just one quick correction. Florida has lost 5 fumbles, 8 interceptions. Okay, as we go to some other things that may factor in, we've talked about how disciplined Florida has been all year. That did not show up last week in Nashville. Florida fumbled away a punt that went for a touchdown, had some penalties, which was uncharacteristic of Billy Napier's team. I have a feeling you'll see a more disciplined Florida team this week. The Gators have been averaging 43 penalty yards a game. Florida State, 64. FEI, which ranks special teams, and this always lags a week. FEI does not update its numbers until later in the week. It ranked Florida 31 coming into last weekend and Florida State 39. Strength of schedule, Florida's played a fairly significantly tougher schedule than the Noles. Not that Florida State's has been easy, but Florida's has been pretty challenging. So those are all things you may want to consider when you're looking at this game. And finally, we've got an over-under of 10. An over-under of 57.5. The Seminoles 10-point favorites. That would predict a final score of 34-24. The over-under, based on what the teams have been doing, should be 56. But anyway, that's a lot I threw at you there, Blake. What do you have from covers or anything else that people should know as they make their picks?
Yeah, we know some Florida State fans will be in here. Of course, we are an SEC channel. We're not professional bettors. We just cover the SEC inside and outs, and we always throw in some stuff here from covers to give you an idea of if there's anything that kind of stands out. To be honest with you, not a ton here. Florida State 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games. They're 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 games in November. So a November covering team here for the Seminoles. That has worked out well. Road team 8-2 against the spread in the last 10 meetings between these two. So that's worth noting. Favorite 16-5 against the spread in the last 21. So I just think, to me, Chris, this is one where, again, if Florida wins the game against Vanderbilt, maybe we're making a stronger case here, but I just think this Florida State team is pretty good. And I think just watching them, Trey Benson and his ability to run the ball, very kind of elusive back, I just think that could be a problem for Florida here. And again, this is a Florida team that, I don't know what the conversation we would have been having, but I think just some of those mistakes they made, and like you said, they should correct some of those heading into this week. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have because I think the thing too is, right, like the sample size for Florida on the road this season. Because they only play 4 road games, right? I mean, it's obviously the Georgia game's a neutral, but this will be, their 4th true road game of the season. If you look at kind of what we've seen, obviously they played pretty well in for the most part against Tennessee. I know they beat A&M, but again, we talk about kind of that A&M team was completely decimated. The Vanderbilt loss just kind of, like I said, resets. I think you're thinking on the Gators. I'm going to pick Florida State here. I think they will run the ball very effectively. I think Benson, clearly could have a big game here. And I just want to see Florida get back on track before I'm going to pick them in a spot like this in a rivalry game, coming off a loss at a Vanderbilt team that most people feel like they should have won that game. So,
yeah, I like Florida State to win. 10 seems like a lot. I've been high on Florida. Obviously, last week has to factor in. But Billy Napier's run a disciplined program. I think they'll be up for this game. I kind of feel like I like the under here, but I'm not real sure about it. And there's just a lot of things. I liked it better before last week when I felt like I could have an opinion on Florida and I could feel pretty good about it. And I just think the Vandy game and the way the Gators played did a lot to damage that confidence. I still haven't lost it completely, but it's hard to have as much as I did a week ago.
Yep, I'm with you on that. So I think the Seminoles probably sitting in a good spot here with a chance to win their 5th in a row going into the bowl season.
Okay, we will be previewing every single SEC game for the coming week. Don't forget, games in the SEC start this week on Thursday. The Egg Bowl will be Thursday night, and again, Florida and Florida State, one of the 2 Friday games. We're previewing every single one of these on our channel, so be sure to hit that subscribe button. That'll also notify you when we have our live stream on Wednesday night, which we do at 8 Central. That's a lot of fun. We update people when there's injuries and such. So anyway, thank you for watching. Please hit that subscribe button. We'll see you again soon at Southeastern 14.